What's going on, guys? I'm Jesse, and I'm a student.
Hi guys, this is Trek from MDFI, and I'm an instructor.
What's going on, guys? Jesse from Practically Tactical here, and I'm with Trek from MDFI. TrainMDFI.com, be sure to check them out. Today we wanted to kind of talk about expectations of not only the student going into a firearms training class, but also the instructor. Not top of the list important, but it's the attitude, you know. It comes down to, does the person have a sense of humor? How do they direct the information to you? Do they make it easy to learn? You know, do they put it in simple terms? You know, a lot of this, like I said, we can get above and beyond into it, and I tend to find, you know, breaking it down to its basic terms for me through an instructor really drives that point home. Like I said before, a lot of these new classes, especially if it's your first time through them, it's drinking from a fire hose. So the having ample time to digest that information, having ample breaks throughout to be able to go back and kind of decompress, jam mags. Like I said, there's a lot of stress throughout these classes because you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself. I mean, we all want to perform to our max level. You want to impress the instructors to show, hey, I'm good at this, you know. And I really think that an instructor having a good sense of humor that can bring you down to that level, or say, hey, you know, maybe you weren't paying attention here, you did something unsafe, but again, not really driving home that fact of, you know, you're stupid, you did something wrong here. Just an open line of communication and a good attitude. What do you think about students?
Yeah, you're basically talking about feedback, and we define feedback as what you're doing good, what you're doing bad, and how to improve. And so, yeah, you're mentioning if the cadre can't get that point across, you're not getting what you need out of the class. The same thing applies for us when it comes to you as my student. I need to get feedback. I need those after-action reports that don't need to go on the interwebs to make me feel good about myself, but I need a no pulled punches after-action report. Either send me an email, come over to me after the class and say, hey, this is what I really liked about the class. Maybe we could have spent a little bit more time here, and this is what I think you can do. We've made changes as instructors by having students come over to us. I've made changes on the fly to a curriculum because the idea that was brought forth from an outside point of view made me think about it and go, you're absolutely right. That, from a student's point of view, makes far more sense. So just both of us, we can't exist without feedback. So I need to give you the feedback that you need to improve as a shooter, and I need feedback from a good attitude student about what I can do to make your experience that much better. It's very important.
No, I think, you know, that kind of leads into the approachability aspect, you know. I want to be able to, you know, ask those questions throughout the day that, you know, may seem kind of simple and stupid to me. And I want to be able to, you know, be able to come to you and approach, and again, decompressing after the fact. That's the other thing. I don't want just an instructor that I can approach during the class, and then once I go home, it's like, oh, I think of something different that maybe I didn't come up with there on the spot, and now I want to, you know, get that feedback from them. And I think that's a big point, is after the fact, of being able to approach that instructor and having groups like, you know, the alumni groups. A lot of these training companies, they have where you can actually get into secret groups on Facebook and, you know, ask questions. So I think that's another big thing. How do you feel about, you know, that is for students?
Yeah, taking notes is huge. As you mentioned, feeding through a fire hose. We have to run a line. I have to run a line. My assistant instructors, they can come around, they can give you one-on-one feedback. If I see something, I can give you one-on-one feedback. But your brain's going a million miles an hour. We know the students are going to be dealing with the 4 life safety rules. It might be their first time with 9 other students on a line. Loud noises like Brick Tamlin from the Anchorman. But the reality is, you're going to have questions, but you're not going to be able to get them all out in class because we have a curriculum that we need to adhere to. We need to make sure that all the students are on the same page. So on those breaks, take notes. And yeah, you do need to have the ability for follow-up questions, whether it's by email, by Facebook, things along those lines, because learning doesn't just occur at that class. Learning is going to occur on the drive home. You're going to be thinking about stuff. So yeah, be engaged as a student. Write those notes down, and don't be afraid to shoot those things off, because I guarantee you there's instructors out there that people might think are unapproachable, but the fact is they really just would love to have those follow-up questions so they can give the students what they need.
No, another huge thing for me as the student would be class size. You know, I feel like that's a big thing, because yeah, if you get to a class that has 40 students with one instructor, you're not going to get that personal one-on-one feedback. And especially as you start to transition farther throughout your training ordeal, you know, you're not going to be learning as much at those times. You're going to be rounding out corners, or maybe being able to pick up something a little bit different in a different way that, you know, from a beginner standpoint doesn't really work for them, but as you advance, it's maybe try this. So I think a big thing is the class size. I don't know how that would relate to a student, but do you have any talking points on that?
Yeah, well, the reality is that as far as I'm concerned, we keep the classes, you know, 20 at a maximum, and those are relays of 10. We find it incredibly important that we have 2 relays when we have a full class, because not only are you learning on the line as a student, but we understand you as the student may not learn just from the tactile nature of shooting. A lot of people are going to learn visually. So by having that second relay, they can watch what the shooters are doing and they can learn from that. And I think that's very important. Yeah, we have some schools out there, you know, 40 students on a line with 1 instructor. I have severe concerns about that just due to the fact of feedback. There's no way, I would be too daunting for me. I got to make sure nobody shoots themselves. I got to make sure everyone's being safe, and I have to get through the curriculum. If I'm by myself, I can't go and give you feedback. So from a student's point of view, that research that you mentioned, make sure you're doing research. If your goal is to go to a 40-person class, know it before you get there. If that's what you want to do, go for it. But by doing that research beforehand, you can say, hey, small class size, great after actions on one-on-one feedback, and all the students that I've read about that have put that information out there said, this is the class to go to if you need that special attention. And so that does fall back on the person spending the dough, not on the instructor, because they're going to run the school the way they want to run the school, and they'll do that based on feedback from the students.
And, you know, probably, yeah, the last thing for me would be who they recommend, you know. That's another big thing. I think, you know, certain schools are only going to be able to take you to a certain level, and maybe they don't master in every single case, you know, like obviously ground fighting, medical, you know, everything down to, like you said, tracking outdoors. It's not always just about the gun, so it's nice to be able to ask instructors who they feel are good instructors to give yourself that feedback as well.
Yeah, if you have if you've got a school that's the end all be all, there's some schools out there that like to, oh, well, you know, let's fire upside down shooting from a little bird helicopter just because we had demand for it, but they've got no experience doing that. That should be a concern for the students. There should always be recommendations from the instructors to other friends in the industry that may be a specialist in a certain field. So as the person builds on that foundation, get that recommendation. But also, on the student's point of view, do that research. The interwebs is full of stupidity. We know that, but it's also got some great information out there. So see and ask those questions. Hey, what did you take after you took this class? What was your next step? That information's out there. Find it, enjoy it, and keep learning, and that's what it's all about.
No, well, there you go, guys. I hope, you know, that gave you a little insight of, you know, what to look for in an instructor, maybe what to look for as a student, you know, some of the criteria that you should kind of have going in. I would definitely say check out the prerequisites, check out the ARs, do your homework, you know, ask questions. That's the thing, you know, find other people that are kind of on that same path as you and ask them questions, figure out where they're getting good training. So this has been Jesse with Practically Tactical, Trek with MDFI. Make sure to check out trainmdfi.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later.
Knowing is half the battle.